led Africa's most successful company for years, driving value in gas. Thank you very much. Onwards now to the panel session. Now, real quick, let me just say this. As I bring up the panel, once I'm done bringing up the panel, we will take a minute to just stand, stretch, and then sit again, because we've been sitting since 9:30 a.m. Well, let me bring up the panel first. Before we do that, the panel is ready to go. And this panel's first session for SAIPEC this year is the country showcases. We're looking at the national oil companies. This session will highlight the opportunities as several new and existing energy countries offer their projects. I know in Senegal, in Uganda, many other countries, FID has been passed on certain projects and many more. Some of the things, these are some of the things that we discussed now. So let me begin first off by welcoming to his seat on the podium. Usually I would do the other way around, but let me start here now. He's been introduced by different speakers. His Excellency Dr. Emmanuel Resources, former OPEC and Apple president. Please put your hands together as we welcome our moderator for this session, who will set the tone. Can I have my technical team line up the microphones that needs to be on stage now? Thank you very much. Joining Dr. Kachukwu on this panel, I'd like to welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer, National Oil Company of Liberia, Saifwa May Gray. Saifwa May Gray? Saifwa here? Oh, okay. Joining them on the panel is the Chief Operating Officer, Uganda National Oil Company. Let's welcome Philip Obita. Philip? Joining them, let's welcome Mr. Yahaya Barrow, Managing Director, Gambia National Petroleum Corporation. You're welcome. Paul, if you can confirm if Philip Obita is in the room, thank you. Joining them is Mr. Sheikh Brahim Habila, Director General and Technical Advisor of SMH Islamic Republic of Mauritania. You're welcome. Also from SMH Mauritania is Chem Sidian So Diana. Mr. Diana, you're also on the panel. You're welcome. Now, joining them are two panelists who are remotely joining us from their different locations. First off is the Chief Executive Officer, National Oil Corporation of Kenya, Laparan Ole Morintat. Mr. Morintat, can you please say something to confirm to me that you can hear me? He's on? I want to hear him. Mohammed, let's hear him. Does he need to unmute? Good morning. Please check if your mic is unmuted. Okay, while we're doing that, also joining us virtually is the Exploration Director for Petrosen Republic of Senegal, Mr. Joseph Mido. Mr. Mido, can I say Mr. Mido is not here? Oh, okay. Okay, but I can't seem to hear.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, okay. I can hear him now. I thought I heard him. Yeah, yes, I think I can hear you.
This is Leparan Morintat, the CEO of NOC, National Oil Corporation of Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We can hear you now. Okay, so
thank you.
Sir, before I pass it on to you, if you don't mind, let me just allow the distinguished delegates for a minute. Just please, ladies and gentlemen, you've been sitting since 9:30, 9 a.m. Just stand and stretch your legs a bit. Stand and stretch your legs a bit. And once we're done with that, I will yield the stage to our moderator. This is medically advised by the experts that we do this when we have sat for a bit of a stretch. Just stretch your legs a bit. Just a minute. Just a minute. It's not a networking break or anything. It's not a networking break or any. It's not a networking break or anything. It's just a stretch. Just a minute. And once we get there, we'll take a seat and continue. I think he is. So my lead moderator and chairman of session has said I can allow people use the restroom and come back. So I'm adding another 2 minutes as directed. He's here in person? Oh, okay. Okay. Please. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, let me. Okay. Mr. Shiha, can you confirm that Medu is still online? Medu is online? Okay, Medu. Medu, can you say something? Medu, I can see you.
Hello.
If you can see
How are
me,
you?
please say something.
How are you?
Very well, I can hear you. Good
Okay,
afternoon, Mr. Medu.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. How are you doing? Oh,
Brilliant,
good
brilliant,
morning.
Mr. Medu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we start taking our seat now. Thank you very much. Please return to your seats. Please return to your seats. Thank you. Thank you. Please return to your seats. Thank you. Please take your seats. 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 Please, the delegates around the coffee area, if you can come back inside now, please come back inside. Please come back inside. We need to get started. Please come back inside. 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 Thank you very much. Please come back inside. Please come back inside. Please come back inside. Please come back inside. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, as we're settling down, I want to make a correction. The in-person representative of the GMD of NMPC, the General Manager Planning, her name is Abiola Falowo, not Lola, as I said earlier. My apologies, Madam Falowo. Thank you. We are also joined by the Managing Director and Country Chair of Shell Energies Ghana, Muriki Bryan. Mr. Bryan, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. From Shell Ghana. So settle down, please, settle down. My journalist friend with the magazine, please, thank you very much. We can do that at the next break. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And now the stage is set for the country showcase. Dr. Emmanuel Ibekechukwu, Your Excellency, sir, the stage is yours.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And where there are excellencies, I also add that it is increasingly becoming obvious that everybody in Nigeria is becoming excellency. So sometimes it's difficult to know who to call excellency and not. Thank you very much for inviting me, organizers of this program. And Tony did say he welcomed me back, implying that I've been gone for about 2 years. No, I've been around. I think the key word is the transitioning. It's not retiring, so you transition from one level of obligation or role to another. So I'm glad to be here to share this panel discussion. Let me first start by saying that it is a very critical time in the growth process of the energy sector. The key things you will notice over the next coming years is obviously the world transition will assume much wider dimension. We're getting to stages where major oil companies and IOCs are basically walking away from their investment or selling their investments. You're looking at obviously the key concerns about emissions and what needs to happen next. And then, of course, you have a lot of African economies who are emerging into this sector, are looking for opportunities to be able to grow and indeed join the League of Oil-Producing Nations. So it's usually a very critical period. I do share Farouk's concern sometimes that it's almost like we're not leaping ahead well enough. We get from firewood period to coal period to oil period, and each time we're miles behind. And so that is why the warnings of Tony are very critical, that it is important that as we look at the transition period, we begin to make boundary leaps towards the next generational movement in this sector. Otherwise, again, by the time we get there, we'll be lost in transition. But I think it's also a huge opportunity period for oil investors or national investors in the African continent, both individual and corporate, and both individual and national. And that's why I'm particularly glad that we're having this session that involves national oil companies, because ultimately a unifying and bonded relationship between these national oil companies, obviously led by the likes of Nigeria and Angola, would help to catalyze this group as the next vehicles of development in this sector. So it's very, very critical that we begin to find forums in which you all come together, share thoughts, and look at what investment potentials are. Nigeria has done quite a lot in the last couple of years in terms of energizing private sector investment by Nigerians. And I'm beginning to see a lot of Nigerians get outside Nigeria to own blocks in very many countries in Africa, and to indeed join as investors and financiers of oil exploration and production activities in those areas. But the sort of funds that we have are not enough. we need to look at leverage on regional organizations who have requisite funding for this to be able to grow. So today I will be particularly interested in hearing what the opportunities are in these sectors. Whether it is places like Senegal, which have been able to at least transition out into being able to find and discover their own oil and begin to create a mix of production, to the likes of Kenya and the rest who are beginning to grow in those areas, or the likes of Liberia, which has some of the most versatile fields available in the African continent right now, or Nigeria, which continues to grow and continues to look at new opportunities. It'd be nice to see what each country is doing and what the opportunities are. And I think the essence of this gathering will be to then, for those of you who are private sector players in this area, to look at what is happening in these countries and how can you leverage on what we say here today to encourage you to get into these countries and to make your investments. We have 1.5 hours. I'll be very strict with time. We'll hope to have every person have about 10 minutes, every country have about 10 minutes to present their own portfolio. Then we'll have under 10 to 15 minutes for questions and answers from all of you. And then we'll do a wrap up for 5 minutes. And that's how we exhaust our 1 hour, 30 minutes. So without wasting too much time, I'll call the very first speaker, which I think should be, from what I'm told, Mr. Joseph Medu, who is the Exploration Director for Petrosen, Republic of Senegal. And I think he's joining us virtually. So, Mr. Joseph, if you can hear me, the stage is yours now. Mr. Joseph Medu, Exploration Director, Petrosen, Republic of Senegal. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank the organizer for inviting us to talk a little bit about Senegal and the opportunities we have in terms of oil and gas exploration and production, and also other opportunities. As you know, we have made in Senegal 3 gas discoveries, Greater Tortue Ahmeyid, which we share with the Mauritanian. We have the Teranga discovery and Yakar Teranga. And all those discoveries are about 40 TCF of gas. So it means that we really have a lot of gas that we can use for the transition, energy transition. And that's what we want to do. We do have also fine oil. We have about 4 oil discoveries. We have Fan South, SNE, which we call now Sangomar, and SNE North. The Sangomar discovery is presently under development, and we are about 40% of progress on the development phase for phase 1. And also, we are developing also Greater Tortue, which is closer than to 75% of progress. For those 2, the Sangomar oil discovery and the GTA gas discovery, we expect to start the production before end of next year, 2023. So it means that for the gas discovery, we are working on a gas monetizing plan that will be able to show us what we can do with the gas. The idea is to monetize the gas locally by using it to produce fertilizer, at least LNG also, but also all the plastics and what we need, especially for power and also to develop our agriculture. We still have open block that are available for companies that want to do exploration. For example, we have at least 12 offshore blocks that have huge potential. We recently have 3 blocks that are relinquished by BP, 2 blocks relinquished by BP and 1 relinquished by Woodside. And on those blocks, there are already prospects that was mapped and really has gas potential and oil also potential. We are open to get the investors that want to invest in the upstream, the midstream. There is potential also for midstream, because we want to build a gas pipe network of about 200,000 kilometers to transport the gas from the producing center to the user, which will be mainly Senelec and the cement plant. Those are the opportunities that we have, and we are really open to investors that want to invest in Senegal. Thank you, sir, and open for question later.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
Welcome.
I will now call on Mr. Leperan Gideon Morintard, who is the CEO and MD of National Oil Corporation of Kenya. Mr. Leperan. Could you unmute your, okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Session Chair, Dr. Your Excellency Emmanuel, fellow panelists and all delegates. I'm joining you live from Mombasa. Unfortunately, I could not be with you in Lagos due to unavoidable circumstances. And just like the theme of the conference is saying how NOCs are adopting post-COVID, I think one of the things that COVID significantly enhanced and entrenched in our culture is the culture and the habit of doing virtual presentations. And so I'm happy to join you today virtually from Mombasa, Kenya. The National Oil Corporation is a state-owned oil company established in the early 80s to undertake all matters oil and gas exploration from upstream, midstream, and downstream. We have a very robust regime in Kenya in terms of the downstream business. We also have a very significantly well-established nascent exploration sector, with discoveries having been made by Talo and partners in onshore Kenya. And we are seeing a slow pace of exploration activities happening, but with some significant level of activity just picking up after COVID. In terms of looking at Africa, I think we have heard from many conferences, many fora, that our energy demand is growing twice as much as global energy demand is growing. In terms of increased energy deployment in Africa, we see a lot of renewable activities, especially by off-grid solar solutions, wind, and so on. We see a lot of increase in demand of LPG, at least in Eastern Africa. And there is a growing oil demand by about 3.1 million barrels per day from now to 2040 in Africa. And Africa is projected to be higher than China and only second to India. And we see, with issues around energy transition coming, LNG and natural gas is going to play a very significant element for us in Kenya and for Africa in terms of addressing the energy transition question. In terms of Sub-Saharan Africa, I think in 2021, we experienced significant levels of discoveries, particularly in Namibia, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Angola, Gabon. As we speak, Kenya and its partners are undertaking drilling in Kenya, and we are crossing our fingers and hoping that they hit the right spot so that then we discover our next and first offshore oil discovery. Next. In terms of East Africa, Uganda has just progressed, and now they have completed their final investment decision. In terms of Tullow Oil and its partners in Lokicha, they have just submitted their field development plan, which we are currently reviewing as a country. And Tanzania is also progressing well with their LNG discoveries. And Uganda's proven oil reserves now is estimated at 3.1 billion barrels. And with the signing of the FID, like my sister Proscovia will say, we are on the right track as East Africa on the oil and gas equation. In Kenya, we have 4 exploration areas classified as basins: the Ansa, the Tertiary Rift, Lamu, and Mandera, constituting 63 petroleum blocks. 23 have been licensed, and that means in the next licensing round, which is likely to happen just immediately after elections, we are going to have about 40 up for bidding. 94 exploration and appraisal wells drilled to date, and under the NOx license is Block 14T, which we have completed the initial exploration activities, including 2D seismics and MT and time domain data. Our discoveries in Block 10BB under the Tullow leadership is still in progress. And we estimate that should that operation progress, as soon as the field development plan is done leading to the FID, then Kenya is going to be in a better capacity to produce 8,000 barrels per day. NOC plays its activities in upstream in terms of exploration. We hold the back-end rights on behalf of the state of Kenya. We manage the National Oil and Gas Data Center, and we look forward to re-rolling afresh upstream support services as soon as we complete the acquisition of our ultra-modern geochemical and petrophysical lab equipments and data processing, seismic data processing center. Block 14T prospectivity, and this we are open for farming partners. We have completed FTG, seismic and MT surveys. We have identified 2 main prospect lines, and there is growing evidence of a petroleum system based on the geological surveys that we have undertaken. And so on that basis, then we would like to invite like-minded investors to the opportunity to leverage on an extensive geological, geochemical, and petrophysical data and set up 2 shallow stratigraphic wells. And so on that basis, we are open for farming partners. We are also working with the government towards us being licensed with a second block, which Africa Oil in early 2015 discovered some volumes of natural gas. And we are also open up for farming partnerships on this block. We also play in the downstream sector of the business as importer, retailer, and bottling facilities for LPG and storage for white fuels. And I want to confirm to SAIPEC that the National Oil Corporation of Kenya is equally open to strategic partnerships on this front. By law, the National Oil Corporation imports 30% of all petroleum products requirements into the country. We have a network of retail stations, and our desire is that to grow and have 12% market share by 2035, up from 4%, with a minimum of 250 retail outlets by 2035. And we are also open to public-private partnerships in this front. We also see a lot of opportunities in terms of bitumen, and we are equally open for partnerships along bitumen supply and general strategic partnerships on the bitumen business in Kenya and the region. Similarly, as we look at LPG as a bridge energy, we are equally open to strategic partnerships so that then we can take advantage of the growing LPG demand in Kenya and in East Africa region. And as we look further into transition, we are looking at working towards importing LNG using FSRU or alternatively isotainers. We are also looking at opportunities for doing natural gas pipelines from our neighboring countries down here in Tanzania. And we are looking at also working with strategic partners to develop an LNG terminal. And on that basis, then we also look at exploiting the available domestic natural gas reserves. And as a business of the future, talking transition, we look at natural gas, electric car charging ports in our stations, LPG skids for cars, and biofuels as our next area for development, including divesting into OPV technology. And with those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kenya.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ron. Very comprehensive upstream, downstream overview, and particularly your new initiatives in gas. Very open to good opportunities. I think he will be the last of our virtual speakers. So now we move to the non-virtual and here present speakers. Let's start with Saifua Mai Gray, who's the president and CEO of National Oil Company of Liberia, NOCAL, to do his own presentation. Is he here? Liberia? Okay, no. Sorry, for Liberia? No, okay, all right. The next person will be Phillips Obita, who's the COO, Uganda National Oil Company. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Allow me to ride on the back of the already existing protocol that was laid down by the project program director. My name is Philip Sobita. I'm stepping in for our chief executive, Ms. Proskovia Nabanja, who should have been here with you. But unfortunately, because of unforeseen circumstances, she was unable to be here, but she sent you very warm greetings and great appreciation to Pattern for the continued collaboration that we have had with Uganda, but particularly the Uganda National Company, so we thank you very much for that. My presentation will just cover who we are, our upstream projects. I'll also touch on our midstream projects and the downstream projects and highlight the key opportunities that are available for the private sector especially, but also the update of the projects and some of the issues that we had to deal with to arrive at where we are. So it's important that, and especially for the private sector players, to know the institutional framework that we have in Uganda. So we, as a national oil company, highlighted in red, we handle the commercial participating interests of the state in the oil and gas project across the entire value chain. But we do have a sector regulator, which is the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, that regulates the upstream and the midstream sector. And we have the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development that is responsible for the policy aspect and investor promotion in the country. Then, of course, on aspects of the fiscal regime, we have the Minister of Finance that handles that. So as a national company, we were established by an act of parliament in 2013. So we are extremely young, as you can see, just about to make 7 years. And our primary mandate is to, like I said, manage or handle the commercial interests of the state in this oil and gas sector. But also importantly, to develop in-depth expertise in oil and gas in the country. Now, for those that would want to work with us, and sorry, could you just skip back? Yeah, so for those that would want to work with us, this is very much speaking to, again, who we are. After having been established by an act of parliament, we are incorporated as a limited liability company in 2015. We are wholly owned by the state. Our shareholders are the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development with 51% shareholding, and the Minister of Finance and Planning with 49% shareholding. We have 7 board members. Currently, we're largely Ugandan in terms of the staff demography. And we do have 2 subsidiaries, the Uganda Refinery Holding Company Limited that manages our refinery and petrochemical businesses. And secondly, the National Pipeline Company that runs our pipeline and downstream storage business. Now, moving on to the next slide, this is very much a snapshot of who we are as a national company in terms of the projects that we have footprints in. And starting from the left of the screen, there we have 2 main upstream projects. At the top, we have the Tilenga projects, where we have a participating interest as UNOC of 15%. And then we have, at the bottom left, we have the Kingfisher project, again, and the upstream field development projects, with again a 15% participating interest. Now, these upstream projects are fully integrated with the midstream, and so all the oil generated will go to 2 midstream projects. First, the refinery project, which is a 60,000 barrels of oil per day refinery, and the East African crude oil pipeline project, which will then export the excess crude to the international market through a 1,443 kilometer long pipeline to Tanga in Tanzania. Of course, from the refinery, we have the white products that will be generated, and we have the KST, as we call it, the Kampala Storage Terminal, that will be the holding and the marketing and distribution terminal for the refined products. And further in the downstream, we have the business of bulk trading, which is on the extreme right. I'll go through these projects again in a little more detail. Next slide. So this is the upstream, and when we were last at the conference here, the upstream and the ECO project were at the feed stage. And I believe many of you must have heard the latest status that we have now taken FID. We did take FID on 1st of February, and that's the key update that we do come with in this conference today. And for the 2 upstream projects, like I said, they're covered under 9 production licenses, and our key partners are Total, CNOOC. So that is just a historical picture. You see at the center, the bottom center part of the screen of our chief executives at the FID function. So on the right is the group CEO of Total. Then to his right is the CNOOC president, CNOOC Uganda president. And at the center is our CEO, Ms. Proskovia Nabanja, that I'm representing today. And then we have from second left, the MD of TPDC, the Tanzania Petroleum Development Corporation, that also holds 15% participating interest in the ECOP. And then we have on the extreme right, I think the MD of the ECOP project. So this project presents a huge opportunity, especially to the private sector players, because the main project contracts, the Tier 1 projects, have already been closed. So the opportunities really lie in the Tier 2 projects, Tier 2 contracts, and most especially the Tier 3 contracts that currently the main contractors and the tier 2 subcontractors are actually looking for. So the opportunities are huge, and as you can see, for both upstream projects, we are anticipating a capital expenditure of up to $8 billion US. But that not to say that during the operations phase, there's again significant opportunities that present itself in form of the operating costs and related services. And for the two projects, we have an estimate of up to $100 million US a year that will be required for operating these projects. The next slide speaks to our ambition as a national company to also begin to look into exploration ventures, and especially because of the view that we take in respect to our midstream projects, the refinery and the ECOP. And so we see ourselves as playing a critical role in ensuring the sustainability of these midstream projects. And so we embarked on a journey of acquiring new exploration licenses. And some of you may be aware that as a country, we ran our second licensing round, in which 5 blocks were put by the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development. And we did take part in that, and we applied for 2 exploration blocks. So as we speak now, we were successful as a national company for 1 block, and we are currently negotiating a production sharing agreement with the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development. So again, we see as a strategy that this exploration project will be delivered through a strategic partner, and we look forward to interested parties that would want to work with us as a joint venture partner in the exploration project. So the block that we are negotiating for is the one highlighted in blue, which the country called the Kasurban block. The next slide. So the next slide speaks to the first midstream project, which is the East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline project. Like I said earlier, the upstream and the ECOP integrated in that the FID had to be taken concurrently. So the FID for the ECOP was also taken on the 1st of February 2022. And just to reflect on the pressure that we do and we continue to see as an industry from investors in respect to the need for us to transition into low carbon environment. Just to mention that a lot of work had to go around ensuring that FID is taken. And as a way of example, for our colleagues who are here that appreciate the Paris Agreement and the direction that the world is taking. Initially, when we developed the field development plan for the upstream projects, we had excess associated gas that would be used for generating power for running the CPF. Now, those would be generated by 4 gas to power generators. Now, in recognition of the pressure that we continuously received from investors as JV partners, we had to figure out and develop solutions that would reduce the carbon footprint of this development. And so we ended up with recovering LPG from the excess associated gas and reducing the generators that would be used for power generation for the facility. And in addition to that, introducing a requirement of running the CPF using hydroelectric power that would be delivered from the grid. So that process enabled us to reduce the carbon footprint of the project by about 30%. Now, similarly for the ECOP has 6 pumping stations along the route. And these stations require power. And in the initial proposal, this power would be generated from burning crude to the tune of about 1,500 to 1,700 barrels of oil per day. Now, again, in the same spirit, we had to work with the investors to try to reduce the carbon footprint. And so we had to introduce some solarization in the project. And so part of the power for running these stations will be generated by a solar project. And again, that reduced the carbon footprint by about 30%. And so that's primarily the reason why we're able to arrive at FID early this year. So the ECOP presently is about a $3.9 billion project, and that presents huge opportunities for private sector player in the conference today. And of course, again, there are enormous opportunity that continues to exist during the operations phase. So the picture at the bottom there is one of those historical pictures that were taken during the FID ceremony that we had early in February. The next slide. So the next slide speaks to our second midstream project, which is the refinery. And in this refinery, as a national company, we have 40% shareholding. We trying to develop this refinery with AGRC. AGRC is the Albert and Graben Reef Consortium. And in terms of status, we have had the land for the refinery already acquired. The project framework agreement is in place. The FEED for the refinery has been completed, and we are currently working to complete the ESIA. So the next and a couple of other pre-FID activities are being closed out. So the next major activity that we are going to embark on is to identify potential financials for this project so that we can take FID for this project as well. And the target is to have FID for this project taken by mid next year. The next slide. Now, it was very interesting to see the presentation from Engineer Simbi about the petrol-based industrial park that you're developing as in Nigeria here. And we do have a similar one in Uganda. We call it the Kabale Industrial Park, which we intend to purely make it a petrol-based industrial park. Now, in this project, Uganda, represented by us, the national company, will have 15% shareholding. And a lot of the preparatory work has been done. We already have a master plan for the industrial park, which has been approved by the relevant authorities. We are currently looking for a strategic partner. We did send out an expression of interest in that regard. And we are at the stage of receiving proposals from the entities that have expressed interest to become our partners in this project. There are, of course, other activities that we are trying to pursue to make the park investor friendly, like access to access and arterial roads, electricity supply within the park, water supply, environmental impact assessment, the baseline environmental impact assessment, and things like that. So those are work in progress, and all those present opportunities to our colleagues, the private sector players, and those that want to work with us on this project. The next slide. This is really my second last slide, and going now downstream, we also have footprints in the white product storage facilities, starting with the one on the right of the screen. That was a legacy storage facility that was handed over to UNOC when we were created in 2017. And we had to look for a JV partner to work with to ensure that we run the project to the benefit of our shareholders and to the country at large. So we hold 100% interest in this storage facility, which has a capacity of 30 million liters of white products. And we're currently working on some upgrade program that should cost us about $6 million, including purchase of some initial feedstock for us specifically as a national oil company to begin to work towards ensuring security of supply for the country. So One Petroleum is the strategic partner that we work with in this project, and they have done quite a lot to rehabilitate the facility from the state in which it was when it was handed over to us. At the time, it was being run by the mainstream government ministry. And I believe many of you will understand when I say that. So a lot of rehabilitation work has gone into this facility, and now it meets industry standards. The one on the left, on your left, is a new storage facility for white products that we're working on to develop, and that will have a capacity of 320 million liters. The land for the facility has already been acquired. We'll have a 51% shareholding in this facility. It covers an acreage of an area of 300 acres in land size. And again, like our other projects, we have structured it in a manner that we'll be working with strategic partners to hold the remaining 49% to develop the facility. So again, these present opportunities for you who have expertise in the downstream storage business. And we estimate that a capital expenditure of up to 300 million will be required to develop this facility to its full capacity. The last slide is just to touch on the second downstream business that we are involved in as a national company. And just to say that we also embarked on a project of trading white products in bulk, and that started in March 2020, and largely from the viewpoint of ensuring security of supply for the country, not to say that it's also important for us as a national company to generate revenue for our shareholders. But the other important reason why we start on this project is to begin to build capacity for downstream storage trading, especially having mentioned in the previous slide that we are developing a larger storage facility that will serve as the refined product distribution hub for products coming from the refinery and those coming or being imported into the country through Kenya and Tanzania. So we want to begin to develop capacity in product trading, and essentially that's what we are doing currently. So for this project, we hold 100% equity, and we are still looking for additional capital to ensure that we upscale it and in a manner that utilizes the full capacity of the storage terminal that we have at Jinja, the GST that I referred to. So those are the projects that we have footprints in as the National Oil Company of Uganda. And on that note, we have a booth, an exhibition booth with my colleagues who will be able to help you. For those of you who want to seek additional information, clarity, or interested in working with us in any of the projects, you're welcome to the booth. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you. Very, very helpful. We will now call on Mr. Yaya Barrow, who is Managing Director of Gambia National Petroleum Corporation, to do his own presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. That's very good. I'll be making presentation on the Gambia, the prospects and the opportunities. Actually, I'm going to start. My first slide is actually giving a background on the country. We are very small, and that is why whatever event we attend, we actually try to remind people where Gambia is and what are the opportunities available. Because as some of you may realize, we're a very small country on the western part of the western tip of, Africa, surrounded by Senegal on all parts, except on the west by the Atlantic Ocean. I think when the fate of Africa was actually being decided in Paris, by the colonialists at the time, the British actually looked at that thin strip of land surrounded by, we surrounded the river. But unfortunately, they didn't do much in exploring the potentials in the river and on land. And that is why Gambia is still, or has not made any discoveries in oil or other essential minerals. All right, so as you could see, the whole land area is about, next slide. The whole land area is about 10,000 square miles, kilometers rather. The population is still slightly under 2.5 million. And you could imagine some of the big cities in Nigeria are bigger than the Gambia in terms of population. The density is about 239 people per square kilometers. And the main economic activity is dominated by agriculture. So the agricultural sector contributes about 33% to GDP and 75% to the labor force. Tourism contributes about 20%, services 38%, and others about 9%. That is the cottage industry and other activities. The GDP growth actually was forecast slightly higher, but due to the impact of COVID, it was 3.2% in 2021. Inflation is high, although still in the single digits, and the per capita is about $800 per person. Next slide. Okay. The National Petroleum Corporation, which is the Gambia National Petroleum Corporation, was actually set up by government in order to represent the government's interests along the entire value chain of the petroleum, of the exploration and production life cycle of an allied businesses. So basically, it came into effect in 2023 by an act of parliament, but it was again enacted as a corporation in 2014 by another act of parliament. Because we are relatively new, we actually try to collaborate with other sister institutions. The Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Petrosen of Senegal, are some of the NOCs that we have actually signed MOUs with, and we've actually been sending our staff to those institutions on industrial attachment. We've actually been trying to get Nigeria. I think this is quite an opportunity now for us to get in touch with our brothers in Nigeria so that we can have a small arrangement to learn and migrate best practice. Next slide. As you could see, the ministry, move on to the next one. There are actually 3 units within the Ministry of Petroleum and a policy unit responsible for providing direction on petroleum resource management. The permanent secretary who answers petroleum and energy. Also, a petroleum and manages both upstream and midstream. Currently, Parliament has actually enacted, and the Petroleum Commission is now independent on its own. It is now autonomous and it's got a Director General. And with the Gambia National Petroleum Corporation, it is actually the business arm of the government. Next slide. We have actually got 2 regimes, the legislative and the fiscal regime. If you look at the legislative regime, which governs the issuance of license, it is actually supported by other legislations, such as the Individual and Value Added Act of 2012, the Gambia National Petroleum Act, the Petroleum Commission Act, which has been enacted recently in 2021, the National Environment Management Agency Act, and the National Disaster Management Act. So this governs the petroleum operations and establishes the legal basis for grant of rights. The model defines general terms and conditions for conducting petroleum operations. Next slide is, these are the physical terms and conditions. Under the physical terms, one of the conditions in the license is actually the payment of surface rentals, and this is paid at $250 per square kilometers. Also, training and resources. Licenses are expected to actually contribute to training and resources fund, which is actually used to develop the industry and also train the local staff. Signature bonus is also paid, but this is actually negotiable. And when the discovery is made, there will be also the payment of royalties, which will be actually be based on the oil price index. All right. Corporate income taxes are also part of the, the physical, the terms. On the part of the state participation, the National Petroleum Corporation actually represents the state interest in the license, and there is a 10% carried interest. And during exploration, if there is discovery, this interest could be actually increased from 15 to 20%. The next slide. The next slide actually shows the geology of the country, which lies actually in the MSGBC basin. MSGBC is the Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, Bissau, and Conakry basins. There are high potentials of hydrocarbons in this area, and recent discoveries in oil and gas has made it very attractive to investors. For Gambia, the blocks actually lie very close, to the Fan 1 discovery in Senegal, and also the same field in Senegal as well. Again, there have been proven working petroleum system, high potential for the Gambia's deep waters. Now the deep waters are A1, named A1, A4. Those are the blocks which has actually been segmented, and we'll actually look at those ones later. All right. Offshore prospectivity. The previous drilling encountered a variety of potential classic and carbonate reservoirs. As I said, we are still not successful in making any significant discoveries, but so far the activities that have actually been undertaken are very encouraging and promising. All right. There is evidence of laterally extensive upper Cretaceous turbidite deposits, and the source rock is the best source rocks have actually been identified within the Cinnamonian, Tronanian, and Albion sediments. The traps are basically structural and stratigraphic. Next slide. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, that's good. The onshore prospectivity, there are about 10,000 square kilometers of frontier area, which has not been explored yet. Geochemical model and analog exhibit the existence of mature source rocks. There are also available limited geophysical data, which indicate the different types of Mesoic and Plesioic plays. Onshore exploration. It started in 1956 by BP. Several seismic surveys were actually carried out. 1973 to 2001, there were numerous 2D seismic acquisitions, which were conducted by Shell, ELF, Chevron, and Petro-Canada. In 2003, 500 square kilometers of 3D survey was undertaken by the government. In 2010, 2,500 square kilometers 3D survey by licensee. At the time, it was Gavi, Kamak, and Erin Energy. In 2015, 1,603 kilometers of 3D square by multi-client survey 27 2D data processes by TGS, and 2020 3D seismic acquisition by FAR. Next slide. Okay. The exploration history continues. In 1960, BP drilled 2 onshore wells. There were oil and gas sources in Cretaceous sediments. In 1979, Chevron drilled 1 offshore well with gas source in Cretaceous sediments. In 2018, actually this would have been in 2018, not 2017, FAR and Petronas of Malaysia in a joint venture drilled the Samo-1 well with oil and gas source. The target was the Albion sediment. That was also unsuccessful, but there were good leads, also the potential for hydrocarbons. In 2021, this is very recent, last year, it was in fact in November, FAR and Petronas again in a JV drilled the Bamboo-1 well. Several target intervals in the well had oil source, confirming a prolific oil source is present in the area. However, we are still waiting on the post-well evaluation, which is ongoing. Next slide. These are the licenses which have actually been issued on those blocks. Those were the blocks I had earlier referred to, but there are still some open acreages. The blocks that have actually been licensed currently are A2 and A5, which has been licensed to FAR and Petronas of Malaysia. In 2019, offshore block A1 was actually licensed to BP. However, due to their new strategy, BP decided not to drill a well. So we've actually amicably reached an agreement with BP. In 2021, another offshore block A4 was given to Petrono, a company in Dubai. We've got A3 and A6, which are still open in the deep waters. And also there are 2 blocks in the onshore, the onshore blocks, which are in both the upper and the lower river regions of the country. Because BP was unable to drill a well, not because they couldn't do it, but it was a change in strategy. I think they are moving more towards renewable energy. The block that they have actually surrendered is currently up for licensing. And the block A1 prospectivity, those during the tenure of their office, BP actually carried out some very good activities now under the block, and these were the achievements. 3D seismic data conditioning processing of 2,566 kilometers square. This data is available. They reprocessed 335 kilometers to the regional line, from the legacy multiple client TGS data. They also did seabed and geohazards baseline review. They did a sub-regional review. They updated the depositional environment reservoirs maps using advanced seismic products. They revised the chronostatic graphic framework, which was a new concept, and new petroleum system-based model. They did seismic interpretation of the reprocessed 3D seismic data. High-graded prospects were actually identified as Elan and Oribi. They completed detailed volumetrics and risking of the Elan and the Oribi, and they recommended, they selected Elan as the prospect for drilling. Next slide. The key objectives of government actually in this licensing process is to negotiate physical terms that works for both the country as well as the IOCs, and those attract the best IOCs. that are serious to come on board. It also aims at allocating exploration blocks in the open and in an open and transparent manner, and so exploration of the open blocks start as soon as possible. What government does not want is for people to sit on the license and not perform anything. It remains the intention of the government of the Gambia to encourage investments into the A1 block and at the same time minimize cost of failure. Hence, the only biddable term in the upcoming licensing round is the work program, which is a commitment by the IOC to drill a well, an exploratory well, within a specified period of time. All right. The licensing round has been actually launched on 7th February this year. There is a detailed RFP document, data list, model license contract, which has been published online, and it can actually be viewed on the ministry's website, which is actually given www.mope.gm. It is also it can also be found on the social media pages of the National Oil Company and also the web page. The deadline for submission of proposals is actually 6th June. The terms of the license are for 30 years. When the license is issued, the licensee, would have up to 30 years to actually do both the production, at any level. There are actually 3 exploratory periods. There's the initial exploration of 3 years. This is actually extendable by another 2 years and followed by a second 2 years exploration period. There must be a minimum work obligation which must be completed, and this is actually clearly spelled out in the Petroleum Exploration and Production Licensing Agreement, which is the PEPLA. A copy of this PEPLA can also be found on the website. As I said, Gambia is still unfortunate, but the most important thing is that the prospect is there, and the A1 block, which is actually offer licensing, has high prospects. So we encourage potential IOCs and other investors to actually participate in this licensing round. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yaya. A small country, but a lot of activities going on there, so interesting. The last country to be talked about was Mauritania, and we'll have 2 presentations from them, splitting their time together. The first speaker will be Sheikh Brahim Abila, who will take the first stage of the presentation, and then after that, we'll be followed by Kamzin Diana, who will take the second stage of the presentation. So please, Mauritania. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellence, Monsieur le Ministre. I am very delighted and honored to be here today with the delegation from Mauritania National Oil Company. And also pleased to be in this session. But the topics that was planned for this session, it was a panel discussion and debate on the impact of the pandemic. Yeah, this is okay. So this topic was planned for, this session was planned for a panel to discuss the pandemic impact on the oil and gas activities, and to present the showcase of NOx, and also the impact of energy transition. But it seems that we changed the topics, and now we prefer to, so that's why I didn't prepare any presentation. Now we will present some our exploration opportunities that were planned for the session 4, which my colleague Shamsuddin will anticipate and present that so our exploration opportunities. Thank you.
It's Shamsin Diana here, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Shamsuddin Soudena, the Exploration Director of SMH. SMH is the Société Mauritanienne des Hydrocarbures, which means the national company of Mauritania. As we are here for the first time, in this presentation, I will highlight or give an overview on our national company SMH, and after that, highlight the exploration opportunities, investment opportunities in our two sedimentary basins, the Taoudeni Basin and the coastal basin, known as MSGBC, that we share with our brothers from Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Conakry, and Guinea-Bissau. So, excuse me for my English, because English is not the main used language in Mauritania, but I will try to do this presentation in English. I mean, in Mauritania, we use French and Arabic. So, next slide, please. Okay, so as I said now, the presentation will focus on the SMH, an overview of SMH and the two sedimentary basins, the coastal one and the Taoudeni one. Next slide, please. So, SMH, the national company of Mauritania, was created 17 or 16 years ago in 2005. And it is a technical and commercial arm of the government, of the Ministry of Oil, Mine and Energy. And its vision, our vision, as you can read here, is that we are a national oil company whose ambition is to maximize for the nation the value of natural resources, and through their responsible exploitation, contributing to the sustainable development of the country. We believe that we can gather natural resources exploitation and environments, because in our company we care about future generations. And now, what about our mission? Next slide. SMH is involved in upstream and downstream activities, but officially it can be as well involved in midstream activities. But now we are focusing on our main, business, which is upstream and downstream. And in the upstream sector, we are involved in oil exploration activities, development activities, and production activities. We've just decommissioned the Shingiti field, which was the first oil discovery in Mauritania in 2001, done by Woodside Energy. We exploited it from 2006 to the end of 2017. And we've achieved the decommissioning in 2 phases, and it is really from this experience we learned a lot, and I think that there are not a lot of fields that have been decommissioned in Africa. So this is really a good example of successful experience in Mauritania. So in the regarding our assets, we are more than 200 employees. I mean, the majority of the SMH employees are engineers in all oil and gas specialties like geology, geophysics, geoscience in general, reservoir production, etc. And we have a strong legal department, an auditing department as well, and an economic department. I mean, we have the whole team that is dealing with this upstream very tough sector. And we are as well involved in the downstream activities, but specifically in SMH, we just manage and exploit the storage facilities that are in the country, exception of Nouadhibou, which is the second biggest city in Mauritania. And we manage these facilities that are dedicated to storage of imported refined hydrocarbons, because we import the refined hydrocarbons that we use in Mauritania. Next slide, please. Okay, now what about the current and ongoing projects? We have in Mauritania the biggest companies, oil and gas companies, officially called majors. We had ExxonMobil that left just last year, ranked #1. We have currently BP, we have Shell, we have Total, and we have some other companies like Cosmos Energy, of course, that discovered the GTA field that we share with our brother of Senegal. And we as well have Petronas that exploited the Shingiti field and was decommissioning this field. And some important data. TGS just achieved last year more than 7,500 kilometers of 2D speculative seismic, very important for the promotion. Total in 2020 acquired more than 6,000 square kilometers of 3D seismic in C15 and C31 blocks. Now they achieved the full stack processing, and they are preparing for a potential well to be drilled between this year and next year. Shell has acquired more than 10,000 square kilometers of 3D seismic in between C19 and C10 blocks. C10 is a very important block now operated by Shell, and it's the block where we have majority of discoveries like Shingiti, like Walata, like Banda, etc. But these discoveries are not I mean, under this PSC, because it's just a production sharing contract for exploration, and there is a carve-out area that gather these discoveries. And Cairn as well, that I forgot to mention earlier, is acquired since April last year. The block C7 that was operated before by Total, and they achieved 300 square kilometers of high definition 3D, and they are processing, reprocessing more than 1,000 and half 3D square kilometers of 3D seismic. And BP, as you know, with the partners Cosmos Energy, SAIPEC, and Petrosen, have done in 2019 the biggest gas discovery in the world in the ultra deep, offshore domain in this coastal basin with Birala discovery. I will highlight this discovery later. And we can note that ExxonMobil acquired 2 years ago the biggest 3D campaign ever acquired in the world, more than 20,000 square kilometers, and really it was a huge job in C14, C17, and C22 blocks. We have as well a gas master plan ongoing study to, like in Senegal, as Joseph Meidou highlighted during his speech, we have a same gas master plan study ongoing to really identify the monetization option of this gas that is under development. The option of monetization for the country, because the LNG is the option for the operator to market this gas. Now in downstream project, as I said before, we are just to date, but it can evaluate in the future. We are, managing and exploiting the refined oil facilities, and we have several ongoing projects to rehabilitate or to enlarge the storage capacities in Nouakchott, in Ndiago, very important because the port of Ndiago is the port that is the nearest port to the GTA discovery. It's very important new port, and we plan as well to build facilities in the rest of the country. To facilitate the access to this to the refined products. As well in terms of energy transition. Next slide, please. Yeah, in terms of energy transition and green energy, as it's the tendency now, and people are caring about these topics for this objective to lower carbon. SAIPEC is really participating to the national endeavor and contributing to this national endeavor in these topics. And as we have significant solar, wind, and wind potentials across the country, more than 4,200 gigawatts technical potential, with officially 500 giga commercial, and we have vast unoccupied land and seas, and we've signed to date the 2 MOUs for the Aman project with CWP and with Chariot, another project, the Noor project. Now, we as well have what we call oil services. It's in our status. We haven't really developed the oil services, but we are looking for partners to do it. And as you can read here, we really plan to do joint studies, energy EPC, etc., and logistic support, etc., all oil and gas related services. Next slide, please. Now, we are going to talk about our main prolific sedimentary basin that my colleague highlighted before, Mr. Medo, and the general manager of the Gambia National Petroleum Corporation, which is the MSGBC. We call it in Mauritania, and the Mauritanian part of the MSGBC is what we call in Mauritania coastal basin, because we have two sedimentary basins. We have the coastal basin, which is a young one, a Triassic, and the Taudeni Basin. Taudeni Basin is the biggest intracratonic basin in Africa, more than 1.5 million square kilometers. In Mauritania, we have 500,000 square kilometers of this basin, more than 1 million square kilometers in Mali, and less than 100,000 in Algeria. It's shared by these countries. I will highlight it later. Regarding the other domain that we have, as you see here, the Rigibat Shield in the north, and the Mauritanian belt, an Hercynial belt between the two sedimentary basins. The Rigibat Shield is more known. It's an old shield. It's an Archean one, more known for uranium mineralizations, for iron ore deposits, for diamond, lithium, etc. The Mauritanian belt, the Hercynian Mauritanian belt, is more known for copper mineralization, gold, iron ore, manganese, nickel, etc. Many mineralization there. And Mauritania is more mining than oil and gas country, but because we started to exploit our mineralization since the early 60s. And for oil and gas, we started as well exploration early 60s, but the first discovery was, 20 years ago, Shingwiti discovery. Now, here we can see that the coastal basin, which means the MSCBC, is really an extensive, the result of the extension of the passive margin during the Permian, during the rifting phase. After that, we had a post-rift phase during the Triassic, where we had these famous diapirs or salt domes, deposit evaporites. And after that, during the Jurassic, we have a drift phase with a very thick carbonate bank that is, thinning westward, but very thick eastward. And from the Cretaceous, we had a transgression with these clastic systems where we found gas with Cosmos and BP, and we had the Triassic deposit where Woodside discovered Shingiti and other discoveries. To date, in Mauritania, in the Mauritanian part of MSGBC, we had 11 discoveries, which we acquired more than 100,000 kilometers of 2D, the same volume, more than 100,000 square kilometers 3D, 78 wells with 45 exploration wells. The other wells are development wells. appraisal and development wells. Next slide, please. As I said just a couple of minutes ago, the exploration began in these sedimentary basins in early 60s, and as as I said, we acquired a lot of seismic 2D, 3D, around 80 wells and 11 discoveries. We have mainly two major sequences there. A late Triassic, early Jurassic 1, which is a sand rift succession, and a mid-Jurassic tertiary rift succession. And we have to date 2 proven petroleum systems. The younger one is a tertiary petroleum system with Miocene reservoirs, where we discovered Shinguiti, Banda, Chof, etc. I mean, many oil and gas discoveries, feeded by a CT, a Sino-Mediterranean source rock, very known in the sedimentary basin, and another older one, which is in the Cretaceous, particularly the upper Lower Cenomanian and upper Albian levels, with a source rock between the Aptian and Neocomian, interval. And yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, here you can see that Shinguiti field, which was discovered by Woodside 2001, was really produced from during 11 years, from 2006 to 2017, with more than 42 million barrels exported. And as I said before, it is under the commissioning process, and this decommissioning process was just achieved a couple of weeks ago. Next slide, please. Here we can see the blocks acreage, the blocks map for the Mauritanian part of MSGBC basin. We can see that BP here has 2 blocks. BP has C8 and C12. We can see that the total has C15 and 31. And we can see that Cairn has C7. And the C10 is operated by Shell. And you can see that we have some red areas. These areas are national parks, and exploration is forbidden in this area because these areas are protected areas. And I think that the UNESCO has recognized them as a World Heritage. So as I said in the introduction of my presentation, we really care about environment, and we believe that we can exploit our natural resources, but with respect to environment. Next slide, please. Yeah, here I'm gonna just highlight some main offshore discoveries, not the 11, but the main offshore discoveries. You can see here that we have GTA. GTA is operated in the Mauritanian part. Here we have just the Mauritanian PSC, but in the unit for the exploitation, because it's under unitization, we have Petrosen with us. But here I'm just talking about the Mauritanian side with BP, Cosmos, and as well SMH. And as you know, SMH is part of all exploration and production sharing contract, PSCs. We call them in Mauritania exploration production contract, but it's just PSCs. And you can see that it's really a very good and a very big discovery with very good parameters like 20% porosity or 150 millidarcy permeability. Next slide, please. Here, some data, some explanation about the GTA discovery. It was discovered, as I said, in 2015 by Cosmos. After that, BP came and became the main operator. And now we are in the first phase of the development. We plan the first gas for late next year. And in the first phase, we will be targeting 6.5 TCF with a rate of 2.5 MTPA production a year. And after that, we will target more than 20 TCF in the combined phase 2 and 3. And we plan to reach 10 MTPA production a year. Regarding the legal framework, as you can see, it's an ETZ area, 1,026 square kilometers. It's perfectly spread between the two countries. So we have a split of 50% between the two countries. Of course, we have in our convention a redetermination clause. After 5 years, we will use it, and I mean, only transparency will govern this unit, which is really a model of cooperation in Africa. It's really a perfect example of win-win partnership between two neighboring countries. Next slide, please. Okay, you can see here the project layout. We will have I mean a subsea subsea facilities with the wells that will be drilled. We plan to drill up to 12 wells in the first phase, and from the second to the third, between 20 and 40 supplementary wells. And you can see here that this is a scheme of the first phase with these subsea facilities, wells and manifolds. And we will have, after that, 80 kilometers westward, eastward, we will have an FPSO, floating production storage and lake, for the pre-treatment of this gas. And after that, you will have a hub terminal protected by a breakwater of 1.1 kilometers length. Next slide, please. Okay, here, I mean, same thing. I just wrote here some data and specification regarding this project. Next slide, please. And regarding the marketing of this project, I mean, both states and the operator and the partner agreed really to jointly market the LNG. And a bid was carried out and a buyer selected for a contract of 10 years with 2 extension option of 5 years each. Next slide, please. This is the Birala discovery that I talked about before, the biggest gas discovery 2019 in ultra deep domain. I mean, we have here estimated reserves up to 80 TCF of DIP, very good quality reservoir, like exactly or better than GTA. Its status is that the development is under consideration. We have many studies carried out, as we have other small discoveries surrounding this one. I mean, the operator BP is talking about the South Hub, gas hub in this C8 block. Next slide, please. Yeah, here we have Banda, and as you can see, it's mainly a gas field, but with a little bit oil, and it's quite good discovery done by Woodside, but 20 years ago by Banda One Well, and I mean, the government planned to use it for GTP, gas to power. Yeah, because as you know, like many African countries, we have lack of power, and we need to reinforce our power supply. Next, please. Yeah, here we have Walata, which is an oil 100% discovery. Same thing done by Woodside, the same block C10 in 2003, and it hasn't yet been developed. We have here around 500, million barrel in the Miocene reservoir, and another supplementary 500 million barrel in the Oligocene level. Very good parameters like 33% porosity and around 140 millidarcy permeability. Next slide, please. Yeah, here we switched to the biggest sedimentary basin in Mauritania, which is Taoudeni Basin. It is an old sedimentary basin from late Infracambrian to within, of course, Paleozoic levels. This is a sedimentary basin linked to what is very known as West African Craton, and it is a response to the Pan-African orogeny and the Iberian orogeny as well. Only 5 wells have been drilled so far. Abulag and Wassa were drilled in mid-70s, exactly 1974, by respectively Texaco and Agip, which is now ENI, as you know. And the first of them, Abulag, reached the, mid-Infracambrian reservoir, karstified, and this was really a very interesting discovery. They run DST during 2 hours, and they found 13,600 cubic meter a day. They plug it and abandon it, but this reservoir has not analogs in Africa, but is very known in Oman and Siberia, very prolific there. The first level, reached by the well was the Ordovician, very known in North Africa, particularly in Algeria, in Tunisia and Libya as well. So recently, Total drilled 2 wells, TA81 and TA71. Fortunately, were not successful. and Repsol, Spanish company, IOC, drilled as well Ugia well. So the problem is here that really it's an underexplored sedimentary basin, more than 500,000 square kilometers with just 5 wells, and with just around 15,000 kilometers of 2D North 3D here. We think that it's a promising sedimentary basin. The only problem is maybe a lack of infrastructure, the difficulty to shoot seismic because a lot of sands, dunes, etc. But we think that that exploration should continue, and we really are looking for partners to explore this sedimentary basin. And we think that if discovery is made, it will be a huge one, because it's a relatively stable sedimentary basin linked, as I said before, to the West African craton. So the traps are very far from each other. So the trapping system will probably give us very, very huge reservoirs. And the seals here are mainly interbedded shales. We had some issues with dolerites that occurred during the mid-Jurassic. They are not very good for seismic, but we think that if the seismic parameters are adapted, we can exploit more the seismic here and better identify the prospects. Next slide, please. Yeah, I talked about this exploration history and the petroleum system here. Okay, next slide. Yeah, you can see here in this cross section the 5 wells drilled in the Mauritanian parts. In Mali, they drilled Tuila Yarba. I don't know if they have drilled another well there, but you can see that formation are dipping westward, and here maybe the problem is that essentially the carbonates are very deep here, and they are around 5,000 meters, but we think that there are still really a job to do there, because this is a completely underexplored sedimentary basin. And I think that it was the last slide. Okay, here we have the acreage, the Taudeni blocks map. You can see that it's a free sedimentary basin. The blocks are free here. We had many companies that came. I can tell maybe Total, Repsol, CNPC, Sonatrach, etc., etc. And we think that as I said, it's a really underexplored sedimentary basin. And this year, the government amended the hydrocarbon law to create promotion zones and to allow companies to come, not in the beginning to sign PSCs, but for reconnection of, geological work. And of course, they don't have the right to drill during this recognition phase, but they can, they can acquire some important data before applying for PSC. For more details and information, you can join us in our booth here. I think N26 CD, I think N26, yeah. And there are two geoscientists there, and we will be there to discuss in deep about Mauritania opportunities, exploration opportunities and investment opportunities. Next slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your attention.
Thank you, Zin. We're far gone in time, so we won't be able to take the question and answers we had projected, but we'll advise parties who are interested in investment in a lot of these countries to see them directly. I will also expect that those who are behind SAIPEC will have obviously online some of these presentations and the opportunities that emerge. But just a few quick summary. The first is that there's continues to be a very aggressive play in the E&G sectors all over Africa. And this is at a time when we are all worried about the transition concerns. The volumes that are going to be hitting the market over the next 10 years are fairly massive. And if the transition moves at a fairly rapid pace, then we have certain things to worry about. The second is that the major oil companies who indeed are in the forefront of this transition process continue to maintain leadership positions in terms of investment in this country. So there's a little bit of distortion. One aggressive play in some of the emerging oil and gas play areas, and yet a very aggressive exits in very mature areas. The exit over the last 4 or 5 years, according to Woods and Mackenzie, over $30 billion worth of investment have been offloaded by the major oil companies all over Africa. And so the question is, it is either the countries that are emerging now will prepare themselves for some level of investment shock down the road when these countries begin to exit, or they will be ready for very aggressive and fairly unfair terms of exploratory acreage awards. It's just going to be one of those. It can be both. And so the concern for us here is, okay, fine, a lot of volumes coming, funding facilities exiting, transition, getting very, very aggressive. What is the future? The future definitely has to be that NOCs, like all of you here present, must begin to come together. And first of all, look at how do we have a regional transition program that everybody can play into and can help develop so that there's some universality in the play in this area. The second, of course, is that major NOC players, the likes of NNPC, the likes of Angola, National Oil Company, and the rest, must begin to see how they can handhold a lot of these companies in the play of things. There's lots of opportunities for private sector play, but like you know, most of our private sector players are still in their infancy. They are very dependent on financing mechanisms from global institutions, and these are not going to be forthcoming very easily, given the transition dynamics. I would have loved to also see, and I see a lot of gas play, which is good because it's transitional product, but I would have loved to see quite a lot of expose on issues of solar and issues of wind. And this, I hope, will be part of the global regional transition program that we would like to see developed here. Very many years ago, and I remember going to Houston and saying, look, it was time to shut the doors a little bit on the conference that we have in OTC every year, because I could see this coming. And I said there was a need for us to begin to look internally into our system and develop our own conferences, create investment profiles that will help bring foreigners here. And then we started NIPS. And I'm happy that today NIPS is growing leaps and bounds. It's what we need to do, because in another 10 years, really, we will have to find the funding if we want to continue. Now, for countries that are not even looking at backward integration, that would be a shame, because ultimately when the oil is in your hands and it's produced, if you do not have market for it, you've got to use it for your own local resource, energy, and support. So refineries, petrochemicals, all kinds of backward integration dynamics are very, very essential, and we've got to begin to look at that very drastically. I don't still think we're paying as much attention to those as we should. We're still looking, we're very export pro, which is good for foreign exchange earnings, but ultimately those will dwindle and dry out. So thank you very much, my panel of discussants, extremely helpful exposés. And I think what it says to us is that a lot of opportunities are bound, a lot of issues arise, a lot of concerns need to be addressed, and there's a need, absolute urgent need for global handholding within the African region to see how we move forward in terms of this resource application and development. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kashifu. If you can please just rise with the panelists and take a family photo. Okay, so we have a couple more sessions to go, but we're going to just do one of those sessions, which is a continuation of this, but from different countries now. We finish that, we go to the exhibition, we proceed to lunch, and then we come back and conclude for the day. As the moderator said, if you have any questions for these countries, you can go check them out at the exhibition booth during the exhibition and interact further with them. However, if you've downloaded the app, which I believe, please photograph. Please join them for photograph. If you've downloaded the app, which I believe you should have, then also you can ask your questions on the app and the speakers can answer on the app, and you have opportunity to continue networking for the next 90 days on the app as well. Please, we beg your indulgence to allow us to continue with this session. Thank you so much for your patience. We appreciate it. Our speakers are on standby. It is still Country Showcase, Regulators and Government. Our moderator this time is the Chief Executive Officer, Group Managing Director of the Walter Smith Group. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Please, one more time, a round of applause for the panel members and moderator. So just give us another hour and we'll do this session and proceed to cut the tape and do lunch and come back to finish, right? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, Group Managing